Welcome back to another episode of the world's smallest off-road wrecker. That's not it. That's my old buggy. And we are going to pull these axles out and put them in it.
That is going to look really good.
Now, a lot of you were wondering, why are we not using Toyota axles? It's a couple reasons. Number one, Matt and I were talking and both agreed that the weight of a Dana 60 is going to be a lot better to keep the front end down when he's pulling a side-by-side out of a side-by-side trail. Which leads us into our second question. Is it going to fit on a side-by-side trail with Dana 60 axles? And the answer is yes. And that's because I'm going to use Raceline wheels. And the great thing about Raceline is they have wheels that you can get that are inset. And when we do that inset, that's going to set up our track width even narrower than what this is. And you'd actually be shocked because these are older Dana 60s. They are actually narrower than like a new JL or JT Jeep. Like that's how much narrower older full-size axles are from new axles of a mid-size vehicle. I think people are getting wider in America. So with that being said, let's get these axles pulled out of here.
Hit.
You wait, listen for the storm. Hear the difference.
Eagle Ram.
One down, 4 to go.
Got it. Ooh, had a lot of weight on it. Come on. Oh, there we go. Woo. Oh boy. I still got a lot of things to get out of the front end here because I think we want to reuse the drive shafts for Matt's build. I'd really like to get my cases out and some other stuff, but I can always do that later. I wouldn't mind getting the winch out. You can see all the years I wheeled this thing in the Black Hills. I honestly have no idea if those control arms will work for this axle for the new suspension design that I want to do. Not sure. I can tell you though, once I redid this suspension, this thing worked really, really good. Ultra stable. Climbed rocks well. I just need to update stuff. This poor thing's been abused hard. I'm also not sure how much of the hydraulic hoses I want to use on this as well, because I believe that Matt has PSC stuff heading this way for this front axle. Now, originally we didn't plan on it being rear steer, so I'm not sure what we're gonna do for the back just yet. So let me give you a quick rundown of what's in this front axle. Number one, this thing is an early 90s model Dodge Kingpin Dana 60. That just means it's strong. Second, I already have a Toyota flange on the yoke, so we're good for the drive shafts. Now, like I was saying, this thing has been sitting for years. I tried rebuilding these calipers. The cylinder is just too rusted up, and I need to get new calipers, but it does have Wilwood calipers, Wilwood brakes, Wilwood rotors. I have aluminum hubs that I'm not sure if I want to use on the front of this or not, because that actually cuts down weight, and we might want that weight in the front. We also have a 6-bolt solid outer knuckle. So a normal Kingpin is only 4 bolts. Some aftermarket companies, they give you a 5th bolt. This one is 6 bolts plus it's keyed. So when it's keyed in there, it's actually taking the stress off of the Kingpin bolts themselves for your steering arm. It's hard to see, but I have Yukon 4340 shafts with Yukon super joints. Also have Yukon lockouts. And I put 717 gears in this with a spool in the front. The nice thing about that in full hydraulic steering world is you won't have any slip when you're going to climb a rock. When they're actually trying to turn and work stuff, they'll turn just fine because they'll have full hydraulic steering, but it's gonna work really, really well in the front. In rock crawling world, it's kind of backwards of car world. So if you have hydraulic steering and you have a spool in the front and you put a selectable or like a grizzly locker in the rear, it's gonna work really, really good. And that's what we did here. So anyway, this is about as strong as you can get a Dana 60. I mean, there's a couple little things you could do like 40 spline stuff, but I don't think you're ever gonna need that in this thing. And a few other things, but with these 40s on it, or even when I had 42s on it with water in the tires, I never had an axle brake. So that should speak volumes. I think will be plenty strong for this rig. And also, like I was saying, is Raceline sells inset wheels, so I can get it with like a 5 1/4 inch backspace, meaning it's gonna be way inset, and we can design all of our suspension around that. One of the things I forgot to mention about that front axle, and we did the rear axle the same, is did a single brake line coming down to the axle and then across and around. Now where that's gonna be extremely advantageous is if you are in trees and sticks and stuff like that. Rocks sometimes will come up and catch brake lines. I'm sure you guys have seen it. One of the major things is sticks. And if they're out there on side-by-side trails that are side-by-side width, there's always a potential of a stick coming up, catching your brake line and ripping it off. With this, like this, I will never say anything is impossible, but it's a heck of a lot harder to catch your brake line when it's not hanging down from the frame versus nice and tight against the axle. Another little trick brought to you by Colt Builds It. All right, we now have a hover crawler. So as far as this axle goes, it's basically just like the front, passenger drop rear. There's really only two differences. Still has all the good kingpin pieces. I went with slugs on the outside, and it has RCVs for the inside. So those 300M bells are really, really nice on Dana 60 stuff. Makes the rear end work just so smooth. It's just like butter running that thing. It's definitely a good setup for what we're doing because we have passenger front and rear, and this is gonna make Matt's little wrecker work pretty primo. So I know this thing, when it was in its prime, worked pretty primo. I still need to pull these drive shafts out. They're gonna be too hard to get after the fact. And I just wanna see if there's anything else that I need to get out of the bottom end, because once I get this outside and set down, who knows when I'm gonna get back to it. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna pull these out and call that good. Little drive shafts. I know there's a lot of guys out there that don't like electric fans, but I think a lot of that falls into not having the correct electric fan or not having the correct shroud for your electric fan. In this case, I have a big Spall fan in here, and I have had really, really good luck with it. It also has a big motor, and if you can't tell, the entire radiator is sealed off, so it's pulling air through the fan. That's where most people mess up, is they just put little crappy zip ties through their radiator to hold a fan through, and it's not actually sucking the air because there's no seal around the outside of the fan. That being said, it's gonna be fun figuring out how I'm gonna get this thing out of here now that it doesn't have rolling axles. Flat belly for the win. Perfect. Definitely pays to have some good floor jacks in your shop.
stay.
Figured we might as well get the old dirt, grime, oil, cobwebs, everything off the axles. Most of the oil that was on these actually came from those old Eagle Rams because they were leaking. Plus, I think the pinion seals wore out, so they were just barely weeping. Now for the fun part, we gotta figure out how to get this front axle into this Samurai. And one of the things I see people mess up with when they're doing their own 4-link suspensions is they always wanna start with the back, and the back is the easiest to do. The problem with that is you don't know what your front end is gonna sit at because you have an engine, you have exhaust, you have drive shafts, other things that are going to be in your way that aren't pretty much an issue at all in the rear. So we want to build our suspension at full bump, knowing what our ride height's going to be, and that's why we got to start with the front. Well, with no fuel cell built or anything like that, it's pretty light in the back end. Pretty close right there. They're so much easier like that. So for anybody that's wondering what I did here, I wanted to get another support under our new subframe. Part of that is because I need a place to mount the drive shaft. So we're gonna do a carrier bearing here and then come down to the drive shaft. Secondly, I wanted to make sure there was enough room to still sleeve through here because this is where our flat belly is gonna be. And there's enough room if we unbolt the transmission bracket, pull the transfer case out, we can still pull the transmission, slide it out this way or slide it out the back, which we should have enough room to do that. Depending worst case scenario, you pull the body off. I know I've shown you guys this before, but I've had an affordable bendo for a really long time. Now they make one that can accept the Harbor Freight air over hydraulic jack. I don't think there's a single affordable bender in the US that the jack itself, the hydraulic jack, is made in the US. Now I always get somebody that's like, oh, well, so-and-so makes one in the US, but they're not affordable. Like, let's just be honest. With that being said, if you guys are in a tight spot where you don't have a whole lot of room, like my old garage was really, really tight, this is a great bender to have because you can literally set it up. You can just have it on your regular pump bottle jack and it works really, really good. Unless you're trying to build a jungle gym, very, very rarely should you ever be bending over 90 degrees. I've been using an affordable bender way before I had YouTube, and I have a discount code, 10% off. Use the code Colt Builds It. 2 bending made easy, crunched up in a tight little space. Gazinga. So you guys might be wondering what we're doing here. This is gonna be the new front of the frame. With axles coming up in here, we need to have some clearance, and I wanted to go ahead and get this welded in and get it a little bit structuralized, at least with these tacks. I don't know if I'm gonna keep this tube here, because if you ever need to pull this motor, this is gonna be right in the way. But at least we have a little bit of structure up front. I mean, we do have the motor mounts still that are gonna give us structure as well. That way, when we go to cut this frame off, it's not going to do one of those, hopefully. I got my lines already pre-marked here. Shannon ran inside to go get dinner started, and I think when she comes back out, I might put her to work. But I'm gonna get a pre-cut, and then I'll let her do the rest. All right, Shannon's back from prepping dinner. I'm gonna have her cut this. You got your gloves?
Yes.
All right, I've already cut a line in here, and all I want you to do is to keep it straightish and keep coming down and just chase this exterior line that's already cut. Try not to go through the oil filter. There you go. One off.
Woo!
Oh, snap. Front end is gone ski. You ain't got no frame. I can't feel my legs. I'm gonna take this saw and put it up that side of your frame. And nothing moved. So this worked. Good enough. So I know I got stuff to the frame to do and stuff to this axle to do, but you know we gotta roll it up under there and at least see what it looks like. I think that'll be our full bump-ish. You guys probably know this, but the camera's a little bit fish-eyed. It looks really extended up here, but it's not that bad. I think that is gonna look really good. It's sitting low in the front right now. Now you gotta remember too, we're gonna run more inset wheels, which will bring all this back in. It's gonna be rad.
What did the lunchbox say to the refrigerator?
You got any snacks?
Don't hate me 'cause I'm a little cooler.
I'm just kind of eyeballing everything, running through. I put this alternator back in to see that this link mount is not gonna work. Like, that's just too high. So I'm gonna have to roll these back down, come off the tube straight out, and then we should be able to clear. The other thing we're gonna do is we're gonna take these off and take this mount off because I wanna do new mounts, number one. Number two, and with the way we're gonna set this up, I think Matt wants to use ORIs, so this shock tab is not gonna work because ORIs are just a little bit wider. On the positive end, I think all the links are gonna work once I modify this. So once I roll that down, bring them out, they're gonna come to the outside of the frame by the body mount for your uppers, the lowers obviously to the base of that frame. Should work pretty good. My shoes are untied. That's weird. Did Shen untie my shoes while I wasn't paying attention? Did you guys see that? The other thing I want to do is start kind of eyeballing what kind of radiator I need. It needs to be able to fit inside here, which is basically, I got 22 inches. Realistically, I got 23 and a half, but that gives me a little bit of safe space, so 22, 22 and a half. And then I want to come up about at that angle. So I got about 20 inches there to go this way, because we're going to set it at an angle just like a rock buggy'd be. And I need both ports to be on the driver's side. There's a port there and a port there. Let's see if we can find one. So I think I might have found a radiator that's gonna fit our application. Might have to do a little bit of modification, but it's a 4-core aluminum radiator. Shannon and I also went ahead and brought in all the stuff here from Barnes 4-Wheel Drive. So we got 2 4-link kits for the front and the back, obviously. And this is gonna make it a lot easier to build that. Now, because I'm doing it in a custom application, I'm probably gonna still have to make a few of the things, but at least I got all the stuff to make the stuff if I don't want to make the other stuff. Yeah, that. Well, my drive for the day is done. It is dinner time, and yeah, it's family dinner night.
Yay!
We'll see you guys in the morning.
Bye.
New day. This thing looks pretty sweet. So I spent the morning looking at this thing, looking it over, figuring out where exactly I wanted to set the axle, where exactly I wanted to set the ride height, where exactly I wanted to put the links, where exactly I wanted to make everything mount up. And the reality is I gotta get this frame cleaned up. We gotta get this tube supported. We gotta get a few things up here, and we gotta get the axle cleaned up, ready to be able to accept new link mounts. All right, does look cool. Let's get this thing up in the air. Zinga.
I'm running wild. I'm running wild. Always been a runner, never been one settling down. Spent my life in the backwoods looking for ways out of a one-horse town. I found a 6-string ticket and jumped that westbound train. I only slowed down long enough to stand up on that stage. Cloud 9 is a cloud of dust for the next 1,000 miles. I'm running wild. Ride the lightning, run on empty in the ring of fire. Rolling like Mississippi on my
Bing, bing.
back down to my bones. Don't know where I'm gonna go. Sweet child.
So I went ahead and added some structure to the front of this. That is gonna secure these tubes. These tubes are not moving anywhere now. They are probably just as strong, if not stronger, than the rest of the frame at this point. Especially with a 1/4-inch plate running down here. Now it's gonna look a little goofy because this motor is designed to sit like that. So even though you think that the tube is low on this side, it's actually not. Just the engine is sitting at a little bit of an angle, and that's how it's supposed to sit. This intake's supposed to be flat. And if you didn't notice, Shanna's back today. She went and got some beef. So we got meat for the fridge, or freezer.
Steak.
So we got a lot done in this. Obviously next time we are gonna be getting this axle mounted to that frame. Barnes 4-Wheel Drive style, 4-link, Colt builds it style. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Rock crawlers of 2030, let me introduce you to the Hover Eye.